The world is on fire. The Middle East is being torn up by war and terrorism that have forced millions of people to flee. Syria looks like the disaster of a generation. Iran seeks to dominate the region and openly.
Okay, well, we're going to start here. That's false. Iran has no ability to do that whatsoever, and it has not declared its intention to wipe out, it, to dominate the region and to wipe out its enemies. That's an outright lie that this guy is giving. It's a complete and utter falsehood. But I really wouldn't expect any better from a guy who was, so heavily involved in NATO. I mean, that pretty much explains everything. That pretty much explains his entire position in the beginning. But that's not enough to completely refute what is being given in the video.
Declares its intention to wipe a sovereign nation off the map.
A sovereign nation. What nation? Well, most probably they're going to claim that it's Israel. And this has already been refuted, that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad never said to wipe Israel off the map, and he never denied the existence of the Holocaust. But I digress.
While in Eastern Europe, a resurgent Russia has seized Ukrainian territory by force of arms.
In other words, the U.S. puppet regime that was running Ukraine fell to Nazis, and then the U.S. started funding and allying themselves with the Nazis. So Russia's like, that's a bad thing. So they started funding their own people in there. What areas of the country were already ethnic Russian. So by far, this is not something Russia did. This is something a very weak government under the guidance of the United States caused. And Russia is, in a manner of speaking, cleaning up its mess.
China is flexing its muscles against its neighbors around the South China Sea.
In other words, China is looking to develop its own interests in the South China Sea, particularly with regards to energy resources. But you see, the U.S. can claim no stake there, and all they can really do is try to get some via their puppet governments in the region, like the Philippines. But unfortunately, China is a very, very large power, and the countries who are puppets of the United States, which are largely underdeveloped because of the fact they were puppets, can't actually compete with China in this regard. So really, this is just U.S. butthurt over the fact that it has no legitimate claim to resources in the South China Sea.
There is only one nation in the world capable of putting out these fires. That nation is, of course, the United States. Many Americans will argue, understandably, that this is not fair. It may not be fair, but it is a fact.
Yeah, wrong. It's not that it's not fair, it's that the United States is the cause of these problems. And this asshole, he knows that. He's lying. Like, I don't believe for a second that he believes what he's saying. He knows he's lying. He knows the United States has caused the destabilization of these regions. They have caused these conflicts, particularly under the guidance of this NATO asshole. So no, people are not saying that it's not fair. They're saying it's wrong because the United States is the cause of the problem.
Only America has the diplomatic reach, the financial resources, and the firepower to lead the free world against the autocrats, rogue states, and terrorists that are trying to overwhelm it.
You see, the problem is the United States is the country who is dominating over everything. They are the empire. They are not the rebels against the great powers. They are the autocrats. They are the terrorists. The United States is the rogue state. 900 military bases in, 130 some odd countries? That is an empire. The United States by no means is standing up to some kind of evil force. They are the evil force, and that's actually pretty obvious.
As the Prime Minister of Denmark from 2001 to 2009, and the Secretary General of NATO from 2009 to 2014, I know how important American leadership is.
Because you were basically a tool of it, so yeah, you actually would know that was literally your job.
I've seen firsthand what happens when America tries to lead from behind instead of leading from the front. A case in point.
There might actually be some kind of self-determination or peace, or people determining their own destinies, which is something that is unacceptable to imperialist puppets like him.
Russia illegally annexed Crimea in March 2014.
Oh, that's actually true. It actually is somewhat illegal, but who cares? You're trying to stop a Nazi government, so your point is moot.
The first
Not to mention all your illegal occupations of countries around the world. And wars.
gunpoint land grab in Europe since the end of World War II. U.S. Secretary of State
As long as you don't count what happened in Kosovo.
John Kerry called it an unbelievable act of aggression.
Says the asshole who voted for the Iraq War.
He went on, "You just don't, in the 21st century, behave in 19th century fashion by invading another country on a completely trumped up pretext."
Irony about the Iraq War and Afghanistan War.
This might be an admirable statement of principle, but as a guide to policy, it is dangerously naive, because whether it was believable or not, it happened. The first half of the 20th century was the bloodiest in human history. That was before America became a global superpower.
Okay, interestingly, he now admits that the United States is a global superpower, but for some reason it's the United States that's standing up to the great evil?
Since America's ascendancy, the major world powers have coexisted in relative peace.
Well, no, that's actually kind of a lie. There were a great many proxy wars between the Soviet Union and the United States. So, and not to mention the threat of nuclear annihilation. That's not relative peace. That's not peace at all. All they're saying is that, the United States wasn't physically attacked, the Soviet Union wasn't attacked. Of course, I have to assume that it's the Soviet Union he's referring to, given the time period in which he's referring. But even then, this is an outright lie.
Now that peace is threatened, and America must step forward again. Simply put, no one else can do it.
Nobody wants you to do it because it's absolutely not necessary, because you are the cause of the problem.
Europe is too weak and divided to lead the world. The free nations have an essential role to play, and they must shoulder their full share at the cost. But only America has the credibility to lead.
Oh, so basically the United States gets to control the entire world, but everybody else has to pay for it.
This is not just about money or manpower. It's also about morality. Only America has the moral greatness to lead the free world, not for the sake of power.
No, of course not. The United States would never take over a place to assume more wealth and power, right?
But for the sake of peace.
Something that the United States has never known, because the country has been at war almost every single year. Almost every single year that it has existed. So no, that is outright bullshit. You would have to be an outright moron to believe that. Even thinking that the United States has any kind of moral foundation or any kind of moral superiority over any country is frankly fucking ridiculous. This is a country that's founded on the genocide of two whole races of people, and not to mention the murders of tens of millions of people during its creation, or its lifespan, in which it was dominating the world and stealing the world's resources and wealth.
Yet the U.S. will only be able to ensure peace if its leaders act with conviction.
In other words, ignore the democratic process and ignore the will of the American people.
If the world even thinks that America lacks the will to use force or enforce its red lines, it leaves a vacuum that will be filled by corrupt autocrats, rogue states, and murderous terrorists.
In other words, three things that would define the United States. In a power vacuum where the United States was no longer the supreme imperialist power dominating the entire world, that power vacuum might be filled with people's right to self-determination.
As tempting as retreat might be, it won't make America and the other freedom-loving countries safer or more prosperous.
Well, he's half right. It wouldn't make the United States more prosperous to stop stomping across the entire world, invading, murdering, and stealing everything. It would make them less prosperous. But it probably would make them safer.
History shows us the bad guys don't stay in their own neighborhoods.
Right, because you keep invading other people.
We only need to look at Pearl Harbor or 9/11 to be reminded that the safety of Americans is deeply connected to the rest of the world.
This is some narcissistic, self-absorbed bullshit that is almost beyond my comprehension. 9/11 was a direct result of the U.S. interfering in other people's business. The 9/11 hijackers attacked the United States for the crimes that the U.S. has carried out against the Middle East. Agree with 9/11 or not, that's completely irrelevant, but their motivations are not under question. That is why they did it. And the United States did everything it could to provoke Japan into attacking it. I mean, when they cut off their oil and 90% of their fuel, they pretty much instigated Japan into getting involved in World War II. And a lot of it used as a justification to get the United States involved in World War II. So this guy, and I'm sure he knows that. I don't believe for a second that he's naive and doesn't know. He's a liar, and I'm going to call him as such. A liar.
And the stability that has permitted the vast and worldwide economic expansion since World War II, an expansion that has lifted billions of people out of poverty.
No. Billions of people out of poverty. That's a good one. That really is a good one. Not to mention the fact that this stability they're talking about is the stability, the social peace necessary for the United States to march into countries and steal their wealth and resources. Political stability, meaning their ability to do that unhindered. That's what he really meant. It's not like the United States polices the world and makes peace. The United States polices the world and steals the world's resources.
Could not have happened if America had not guaranteed it.
Because it's not like any country that rejected U.S. influence, like, say, the Soviet Union or China, or just complete undeveloped hellholes, right?
But freedom, stability, and prosperity don't come for free. And they are not the norm.
This always reminds me of the old song I used to sing years ago. Freedom isn't free. It costs the lives of brown babies. 'Cause you're a bunch of child murdering psychos. No, but essentially it's kind of true. The United States does stand on a huge fucking empire of stolen wealth. So, yeah, I guess it's not free. You have to constantly invade and murder people in order to have the first world standard of living.
They are the exception. An American retreat will unleash a new plague of dictators and oppressors.
That's right. If the United States stops invading other countries, Hitler's going to come back, apparently.
Who seek to undo all.
Oh, and Stalin. But that's actually a pretty good argument. If the United States would fuck off and we got another Stalin, that'd be great.
All the good America has done to secure peace and
Oh, because fuck off.
prosperity around the world for decades. And that could lead to a fire no one will be able to put out.
The fire of freedom and self-determination.
I'm Anders Fogh Rasmussen for Prager University.
And you're a lying asshole. So, I mean, this video is complete and utter bullshit. This guy is lying in the service of imperialism. As the Secretary General of NATO, he was literally in charge of the biggest U.S. tool used for suppression of the entire world for U.S. interests. So, yeah, that's my answer to PragerU and this complete and absolute fucking bullshit of a video they just put out. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.